What's up, bros? Hardcore Gamer here to tell you which game is holler, Hollow Knight or Dark Souls. I recently picked up Hollow Knight on Xbox Game Pass for the PC when it was announced, and I heard so much about Hollow Knight that I really wanted to play it since its release, but you know, I'm poor, so it never worked out. And when I finally did get to play it, I honestly didn't have that much trouble with it. It's not to say that I thought the game was easy, that I didn't enjoy it, but to say that I kinda didn't feel challenged into maybe the midway point. And it's not even because I'm used to these type of games. I've never even played a metroidvania game before, inspired or otherwise. But I do play shooters and fighting games where reaction time is king, and if your reflexes and decision making aren't to snuff, then, you know, probably I'm not gonna have a good time. But that got me thinking, why do I feel like Dark Souls was harder? Don't forget to subscribe if you like the video. Hollow Knight shares a lot of similarities with Dark Souls. You have the interconnected maps, you have a lore-based story design where you start off with one goal and you kind of have to figure everything else out yourself. Dying drops your points and dying again loses it forever. Hell, resting spots for spawn enemies. The list goes on. But where does Hollow Knight differ? Well, for one, the game is more fast-paced. Your character moves like he doesn't weigh 300 pounds. Almost like he's not wearing a full suit of armor, go figure. Attacks and animations are quicker and makes it easier to be more aggressive or proactive in a fight, similar to Bloodborne. This makes the moment-to-moment gameplay more engaging and intense. I can actually press buttons instead of circle strafing. Look how fast I can hit the A button, this is so fun. Hollow Knight even has a cool mechanic where if you time your attacks sort of at the same time as your enemy, you'll cancel out theirs, allowing you to get a free hit in. While both games force you to get items to progress throughout the game, Hollow Knight's items actually affect the gameplay, like having claws to grab into walls or give your dash extra properties. You know, other than getting to new locations, these have an actual effect on the combat. Now, there are new attacks like Soul Blast in Hollow Knight or Magic in Dark Souls, but Hollow Knight is the only one with mechanical changes that opens up the gameplay more. And did I tell you about the upgrades? You have to mostly find your upgrades throughout the world and can't directly upgrade your character like in Dark Souls, making it easier to get the handicap in later areas, if you kind of miss a few things. Being swarmed by enemies, having to use your jumps and mobility options to dodge attacks, this game requires precision and good reflexes to get by. But what makes Dark Souls different? Well, Dark Souls is slower. And also better. Well, Dark Souls is slower and action needs to be more thought out. Enemies tend to do more damage and an ill-timed attack can result in half your health getting shaved off, if not fucking dying, because holy shit, this game is cheap sometimes. You're supposed to die in this game. Resources are limited, upgrades, while helpful, never fully tip the scales in your favor. You have a stamina system to manage in the middle of combat. Do I roll or do I attack? Do I shield this and risk my remaining stamina to go to the offensive? All of this makes the game for unexperienced players slower and would help popularize circle strafing, which is where you hold out your shield and kind of circle around the enemy until you see an opening. But it's not just the combat, but your awareness. Because Dark Souls is in 3D, enemies can hide and ambush you. They can appear behind you without you noticing, and the only indicator is the sound of them walking. And their swords tearing into your flesh. Because Hollow Knight is in 2D, there are really no surprises. What you see is what you deal with, and is usually far enough away from you that you can kind of, you know, think about what you want to do about that. If anything at all, maybe you just want to pass and fuck it. And don't forget the fall damage. Dark Souls will try to make you fight in some ridiculous locations against enemies like swordies. Swordies in a tiny ass room with a fucking ledge. Like, I can't sometimes. I just can't. You can't take fall damage to Hollow Knight, which speeds up exploring, but it also means that if you get a bit angsty in the middle of a fight, say you accidentally get thrown off a cliff, you'll be perfectly fine. Where Dark Souls doesn't introduce new mechanics throughout the game, they do allow you to use magic, which can greatly take the edge off the difficulty. Or make it worse depending on which game you're playing. Now, it may sound like I'm just saying Dark Souls is harder because it's more bullshit. I mean, what's the actual? Or I'm saying I'm just a player who's used to more fast-paced games. Both of these aren't the case. I mean, maybe kind of sort of the first one, but no, actually not the case. Because as a hardcore gamer, I actually mostly play RPGs, so I'm used to slower paced games. I mean, there are very few games that I'm actually bad at, like not even genres, just very few games that I just can't. But no, there are 3 reasons why I found Hollow Knight to be easier than Dark Souls. For one, I feel like the bosses were a bit easier to predict. Very clear, I'm gonna do something and I'm done doing the thing phases that kind of stick throughout the game. With my favorite boss fights being the ones where you couldn't directly tell which attack they're going to use right away. And maybe you feel like the bosses in Dark Souls were far more telegraphed and have bigger please hit me phases, which is fine. I might just be a bit more biased because I played Hollow Knight more recently, so if that's not the case, perfectly fine. Because I have a second reason. The lack of instant killing environmental hazard. Now, this might not sound like a big deal, but this meant that I didn't have to fear exploring or traversing the worlds. Not even the more jump-heavy platforming sections. If I messed up a dash, oh well. If I walked into something because I was just holding for it and not paying attention, it was just 1 health. This meant that if I ever fell into acid or jumped into spikes in the middle of a fight, at the end of the day, it was fine. It was 1 health. Life moves on. But the biggest reason is that because hitting enemies allows you to get your souls back to heal yourself. In Dark Souls, you have Estus Flask. Sure, you can upgrade them, but that's still a set amount of heals as you travel throughout the world. As you explore and look for secrets and treasures, you can only heal 5 times, or 10 or 15, before you have to decide to either trek back to the old bonfire or look for the next one. And in a game where enemies can be anywhere with all sorts of weapons, moves, and effects, that's kinda scary. But when I play Hollow Knight, I'm not really scared. I could complete an entire area without stopping at a save point, and I usually only do so just to update my map. If I walk into a trap, I just heal myself. If I take too much damage because I find an enemy too difficult, I just heal. Or if I find the entire zone too difficult, I can just go back to the other area, beat on some weaker enemies and recover to full health. Max out my soul gauge so I can keep healing, and I just go right back into it. And if I am just getting absolutely wrecked by a boss, I mean, I've probably hit them at least twice. At least twice. And if I hit them at least twice, then I can find a spot to heal myself and keep fighting. I've actually drawn out boss fights like this, When I'm at the point where I'm just tired of dying, I'm like, fine, okay? I'm gonna get my few hits in, I'm gonna go in the corner, I'm gonna heal myself, and we're just gonna do this for the rest of the night, okay? I'm not doing this again. And I've dragged out fights like that, and I've won. You kinda can't do that in Dark Souls. You got 5 times. I was more aggressive in Hollow Knight, not just because the game was more fast-paced, but I was also just more reckless. Because I never felt like I was in any immediate danger. I never feel like the game was really going to make me regret doing something. And if I ever had the slightest bit of trouble, there were probably some weaker enemies around me that I could beat on to fill up my soul gauge. And that's what ultimately tipped the scales for me into feeling like Dark Souls was harder. Sure, Dark Souls required more as a player, but it was ultimately that I never feel like I was being hard punished for my bad decisions in Hollow Knight. Now, that's not me saying that one game is better than the other, or me saying that I enjoyed Dark Souls over Hollow Knight. I just found Dark Souls more challenging. But there's more things to a game than just difficulty. So if you enjoyed the video, I'll be doing the Hollow Knight review sometime this month. I don't get lazy. I mean, this video was supposed to come out last week, and here we are. So tune in this month and this week. Tune in this week, next week, to see what I actually think about Hollow Knight. And I'm also thinking about maybe doing a more in-depth Hollow Knight versus Dark Souls, music, level designs, enemies, combat, yada yada yada. I don't know if I'm gonna do that. Maybe I will, because I feel like this video kind of just scratched the surface of how I feel about the 2 games. So we'll see what happens. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Maybe follow me on Twitter to see what I talk about, or check out my anime channel if you're into that kind of stuff. Peace. Thanks for watching.